Okay, so I just
person and
Oh,
in-person vote.
I always start the meeting now with a little tribute to Gene Garino, who is the person who got me interested in this way back in 2016. Went through his 3-day course, really liked what I saw and got involved in this. Unfortunately, Gene passed away at the end of last year. If you are looking for information, you can visit our website. It is DAALR.com. And on this site, we have a lot of information, but key is this helpful links page. So you'll see that right here under key links. And I want anybody that is in Colorado, you need to know these rules that are here in highlighted. These are the regulations to run your assisted living. This is extremely important. If you don't know what these regs are, you're probably going to get yourself in trouble. Also, we have our Facebook page. It is Denver ALR, and we encourage everybody to join that. And that is, of course, just a community social platform. Good place to meet other people and just share information. So we do encourage that you join that. And thanks everybody for signing up with the meetup page. This is helpful, been more helpful when we were meeting live because we could tell the restaurant what to expect. But this is also a communication platform that we use. So thanks for signing up there. Next, we want to go to our sponsors, and we've got half a dozen sponsors that are kind enough to assist us. First is the R.A.L. National Association. And I encourage everybody to join this association. It's free to join. And there's the website there, RALNA, RALnationalassociation.com. And there's about 40,000 plus members now. This has been growing since its inception, which is only about 3 years old now. And there's a lot of power here. So the more people that we have on this, the more powerful we have. And when I say power, I mean dealing with the cities and states and local governments and that type of thing. So I highly encourage everybody to join that. Next, we have the R.A.L. Academy. This is the academy that Gene had founded. And if you're new to this, this is the best place to go to get information and learn about what this business is all about. We have a lot of people here that have been through that academy. So if you're just getting started, this is a great source of information. Next, we have Anderson Legal, Business, and Tax Advisors. They actually were our presenter last month. I learned a few things from them. And, you know, it's interesting. I called them up and spoke with them a couple days ago and said, hey, I'd like to do this. And what do you think? And they were very forthright and honest with me. And he said, you don't need us to do this. You know, you don't need to do that. Just do this. You already got this set up. So, you know, what's kind of interesting is they didn't want to take my money if they didn't need to. This is the place to go if you're setting up your business entities. If you have tax questions, you know, they're tax attorneys and of course, legal advice, mostly for your business. So you can get a membership with them, pay a small fee per month, and they're there at your disposal, and you get some discounts on some of those services. Next, assisted living marketing. These guys, and Peter is here tonight. I'll let Peter chat a little bit about what he does.
Thank you, Vern. Great to be here with you guys. Trying to stay warm if you guys are here in Colorado. Yeah, I guess it's been about 12 years now that we've been working in senior care. We, you know, build websites. We do lead generation with Google ads, Facebook ads, and reputation management. So we've been doing it a long time, very focused on this industry. We care a lot about this industry, and we're ridiculously affordable, is all I can say, compared to a lot of others out there in the industry. So if you need any help with that or just want to talk and strategize and whatever, happy to talk to you guys, but happy to be supporting the group and the website. I do want to mention, if you guys want to see past presentations, if you go to the Denver website, the DAALR.com, down at the bottom of the homepage, you see the most recent 3 sessions, and there's a big show more button, and you click on that and it'll expand out and you go back and see all the past recordings and presentations that we've had here. So just wanted to mention that, and thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Again, I'll toot Peter's horn a little bit too. He's done a great job for us with the Dollar website. He built and maintains the website for my wife's business, and he's currently working on our site as well for the real estate side. So he's been a pleasure to work with and has been very responsive, more responsive than any other website guy I've had over the last 20 years. Next, we have Colorado's assisted living lawyers, but really that's probably limiting there, probably nationwide, and that's Pinkowski Law. And many times we have Brian and Michelle here. They're not available tonight, but they do a great job. And this is a place that they really, really excel. If you're dealing with HOAs or trying to expand your license or dealing with the city, these people know how to deal with that. They helped a client of mine up in Fort Collins get a 16-bed facility licensed, even though the HOA was, very much against it, and the city was against it, but they understand the fair housing laws. They'll help you work through those fair housing laws and use that as leverage to get you what you need to be a successful business. So PinkowskiLaw.com is how you would get to them. And next we have Grand Avenue Business Brokers. This is our group, and we're a business broker. We specialize in assisted living, and I hang my license at A Better Way Realty. At A Better Way Realty, we also have funding available, which is A Better Way Funding, and we do lease options, in which we'll come in and actually buy the property and lease it back to the operator, and then the operator has an option to buy it from us in the future. So we've helped people get started. We've helped people expand. Recently, we helped an operator who's a very successful operator, been up and running for a long time. We bought a few of his properties so he'd have some extra cash so he could grow his business. Now we're out looking for bigger facilities for him. So we bought 6 of his facilities, leasing them back to him, and now we're on the hunt for a 50 to 100 bed facility for him to grow into. So that's another unusual way that you could use our service. Some of our recent activities, we just sold and purchased that 48 bed. That's one of those big ones I was talking about in the 5 8 beds. We currently have 43 beds under contract in Grand Junction and 9 bed in Centennial. We don't have on here our 7 bed that we're closing on Friday. There is available a 9 bed in Arvada, 12 bed in the North Metro area, and there's 2 3-packs. I put the number in there because I meant to put the dollar sign, or I put the pound sign in there instead of the number 3, looking at my keyboard. But it's 2 3-packs of 8 bed. It's the business only that he's looking for, and he's probably in the $400 to $450 range for each 3-pack. But each of these has an option to buy the real estate in 2 years. I think one of those is available to buy today, but the others are 2 years out. So if anybody's interested in that, they're in great neighborhoods. If you need any help buying or selling, you can contact me. There's my phone number, and it's also in the chat. News from CALA. I think we have Peter here to give us what's going on with the Colorado Assisted Living Association.
Yep, I can give you a quick update there. We just got done with a conference. We worked with 2 other organizations, the GDPRA, which is the Placement Referral Alliance here in Denver, and another group called the Mavericks of Senior Living, and did a huge conference in person. Our total attendance was over 270 at the conference. Had great education sessions, and first senior care live conference in the last 2 years, and it was awesome. It was great to have everybody there. So that's kind of the thing we're coming down from. We got a lot of education that's in the works and planning on here coming up. We are monitoring a couple bills. There's a dementia care bill that's probably going to get passed. That's kind of questionable, but we think we can get some money from its dementia bill is going to require additional training for assisted living communities, dementia training for caregivers. But HICPUF is already committed to get some ARPA funds to pay for that training. So you're still gonna have to pay your employees hourly wages while they're working, getting trained, but you won't have to pay for the training. So that bill's probably gonna pass, though. There's already dementia training required in the current regs. Anyway, that's one thing we're working on right now. So we've got some other things in the works on advocacy as well. We have a lot of education plan coming up over this year that we're going to be publishing here within the next month as well. So anyway, we're active, we're busy, lots going on. And if you need any help or support, we're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. And oh, by the way, you did a good job of helping MC the conference. And you're not a bad dancer.
Thanks.
Dang, I'm sorry I missed that for COVID.
All right, so next up, we're going to move into our presenter, which tonight is me. We wanted to get you a presentation that I thought would be really good. We couldn't get those folks in here, but we're going to try to get them in at mid-year. So hopefully I don't disappoint you. I'm going to give you some value tonight. I need to switch what I am sharing here. So give me just a minute as I swap it out here. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
All right, so we're trying to figure out what should we present on. Renee came up with a great idea of what are some of the most costly mistakes that I've seen in the boy, I've been doing this for going on 6 years now. So I thought that was a good idea to kind of share some of these experiences. And there's 3 areas that I've seen big mistakes and where people have really lost some money because they weren't paying attention to these things. First one, I'll start with probably the biggest one that I've ever seen, and that's what we might call the $600,000 mistake. And what this was is back in 17, when I started up with ABW, we had an operator that purchased 4 of our houses. And, these were up and running businesses. They put a couple $100,000 down on these things. But for some reason, and I'm not quite sure what it was, they failed to get the proper licensing in place. And then they did a poor job running the facilities. When I spoke with the operator, she talked a lot about, well, the trying to get through the licensing process was tough. And she said she tried, but that she couldn't get it done. But when I did a little more research too, I don't think she did a very good job of actually running these facilities. So there started being complaints about the facilities, and then the state started an investigation. And then the next thing that happened, this was on the news. And here, 4 assisted living homes in the Denver metro area have suddenly closed after a complaint prompted health officials to move in. I don't know if this tells the whole story. I went through these houses. They weren't that bad, but she still couldn't get her license in order. And I think what she did was really tick off the state. So they were just looking for some kind of reason to come in and take her out. And, when it's on the news that they're moving people out of the houses, that's a bad thing. It's a big black eye for the industry. And some of you that are local and were around back then probably remember this and how much of a black eye for the industry it was. So it was just a terrible thing. I'd been working with her to sell the facilities when the state closed them down. And at that point in time, when it closed, we had a buyer in line ready to pay $400,000 for the 4 businesses. We were all lined up. I remember sitting at the table, working out the agreement. The next day, that happened. And yeah, right in the middle of the deal, bang, that was gone. And that operator had put $200,000 down with us because this was part of our lease option program just to get into the deal. So she lost the $200,000 and lost that $400,000 opportunity. And so that's a total loss there of $600,000 just because of that licensing thing. So, we always want to have some kind of takeaway and try to figure out, well, what should they have done differently? Number one thing is you need to understand what the rules are for your state. You can't go into this without knowing what this is all about. And, at the beginning of the introduction, I talked about on the helpful links, and I stress this every single meeting that we have if you're in Colorado, that you need to be able to click on these links and understand, because this is the new regulations, just the table of contents, and it's 68 pages long. But this information is readily available, and you ought to be able to access something like this in your state as well if you're not in Colorado. So make sure you understand this and know it like the back of your hand, or else you can see what can happen. So you have to understand that licensing procedure for your state. Then this is our change of ownership process. And this is something that we put together. Unfortunately, in Colorado, they don't have it laid out. They've got one person that you can call up and say to them, hey, I want to do a change of ownership. How do we do this? And I plugged this in from an email that we received in one of the previous deals. And I called her up and I said, hey, can you send me some screenshots? We're trying to put together a pamphlet that explains this process. And you're telling them they got to go to these logins. Can you give me some screenshots of what the logins are so that we can walk them through? Because we don't have access to these logins. So I don't even know what they look like. You have to have a special account to do this. And she said, no, we don't have that. The state has got absolutely no kind of guidelines. Just have them give me a call. So I could see if you're not on top of it and calling this person on a regular basis, how you could, let it slip and miss some things and not get it done. But, we at least have some kind of a process that we've outlined here on how to get through this. And it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days on average to get through this entire process. If you don't understand the necessary requirements for the homes, hire a consultant. We've got a really good consultant in our group here in Colorado, Janet Cornell, who's not here tonight, but she will help you. She'll do a walkthrough of your house and tell you everything that's wrong with it. And that will help when you go to have your surveys done. If you can be ahead of that and not have deficiencies in your surveys, that's really important to keep the State Department happy and keep you in good standing with the state. So hire a consultant to do that sort of thing for you if you don't understand it well yourself. Okay, so that was, the big one there. Mistake number 2, not doing enough due diligence. This was undercapitalization. It could be a slide that slipped in. So an investor that I know decided he was going to do a conversion. We went out and looked at some homes and we couldn't find a home. So he decided, well, let's do a conversion. And he found a really neat house. This was actually outside of Castle Rock, where I'm at. And it was really a great house. Had a fantastic view. I think it was 6,000 square feet, 2 levels, but the bottom level was a walkout. And he bought it for $900,000. And after he bought it, he went to get the quotes on all the work that needed to be done, and that renovation came in at $1.1 million. That's a lot of renovation.
Mm.
Then as they started going through it, they ran into some issues with the county. Douglas County said, well, you need this, you need that. And they had an overrun in expenses that came up to $225. So he estimated his working capital to get this whole deal was going to be $100,000 after he got through this. So all in, he'd be in at $2.3 million. It was a 16-bed. So it would have probably worked. You know, we looked at the pro formas and thought, okay, it's a little high for a 16-bed, at least it was back then. Right now, that'd be normal at 2.3. But you know, the problems he encountered is the county wanted a lot of changes to the house, and he wasn't expecting those kind of issues. Then he discovered that the well was running dry, and he had to re-drill 1,100 feet, and that cost him $75,000. He wasn't expecting those cost overruns of $225,000. And he started off using hard money for the purchase because he was expecting a bank to come in and take out the hard money. And probably a month or two after being in that hard money, something happened with the bank. All the lending agents got released and the bank disappeared. So here he is with $900,000 of hard money sitting out there, and he couldn't get the project off the ground. And he ended up losing $250,000. And at that point, it was really his life savings. So when we look at that, you know, what are our takeaways there? I spoke with him today and I said, hey, I want to tell your story. Do you mind? And he goes, no. And I asked him, what's your takeaway from this experience? And he said, well, you know, I probably should not have been afraid to be overly due diligent. I think what he means is he probably should have gone to the county before he bought that house and figured out what needed to be done. And maybe doing some due diligence on the purchase and having it well tested could have saved him $75,000. So never be afraid to be overly due diligent when you're going to get into this kind of money. When we do due diligence, we've got a list of, about 80 different items that we go through on our due diligence. And, you know, we don't always have to have all of this, but it's good to have it listed and know if this applies to what you're going to do. Second takeaway is you need to make sure that you're adequately capitalized. You know, he went in with X amount of dollars and it really racked up pretty high. So when I chatted with him today, he said, you know, I probably could have got through this if I'd had more capital. And he actually ended up going to work for a hard money lender. And he said, you know, if I'd known these guys back then, I couldn't have done it because by the time I met these guys, we were too deep. But if I'd met them 4 months in, then it would have been a way out and we could have made it work. He said it would have cost me a lot of money, but at least we would have got to the finish line. And in that case, you don't lose at 250. You know, if you can turn this into an operating business and make money, then it's not a loss at all. So those were his main takeaways in the process that he went through. And it was really a tragic thing to see somebody go through that experience and lose that kind of life savings. You know, that's everything to him. Mistake number 3 is, I see this a lot, lack of planning for a sale. So a lot of times my sellers, you know, they're tired and they want out. So they call me up and say, I'm ready to sell. And I was speaking with somebody the other day and they said, we'd sell today if we could get the right number. And that right number isn't necessarily the highest. It's just, can you get us out of this? So when we're looking at trying to determine what the value is for an assisted living, there's 4 things that we look at. First one is, of course, the real estate. Second one is the business. What's the value of the business? Third is the comps. And the last thing is, what's the return on investment to the investor that's going to come in and buy this, or operator? You know, everybody wants a return on their money. So how do we increase the value so that we have a good, successful sale? There's only 2 things that we can control, and that's the real estate and the business. Because we can't control what the comps are, and we cannot control what that return on investment expectation is. So all we can do is work on the real estate and work on the business. If we're looking at the real estate, this is very much like any kind of a flip. And I know there's a lot of flippers here or investors that have done flips.
Yeah.
So we're looking to do updates,
Assisted living.
you know, make it look nice. Doing remodels, fresh paint, and curb appeal. You know, those are all things that are very important to the buyer. They want to see, one, that it looks good. You know, eye appeal is important, but they don't want to look at this as, well, I'm buying a lot of deferred maintenance, because that will affect the price significantly. So next we look at the business, and what can we do with the business to make it more valuable? There's 4 basic things that we're going to look at here. Is the good financials. You know, that's the main thing. The bank's going to look at the financials. A good track record, because that's part of your reputation, and that's what they're buying, is your goodwill. Good marketing, which goes along with your reputation. And again, nice furniture and appliances. Those are always appealing. If you've got a really nice setup and people come in and find that nice updated kitchen and new appliances, or at least new looking appliances, you know, we don't want to see stuff that looks like it came from Goodwill or is going to Goodwill in these houses. That's really going to affect the value that you're going to be able to get out of it. When we're looking at the business itself, the financials, you need to show a strong profit and loss. So I know that's difficult right now after 2 years of COVID. We're having challenges trying to show a strong profit and loss. We can fortunately excuse it with COVID. So a lot of times we're going to go back and look at 19 and 18 and see how the business performed back then. And if the business was strong in 18 and 19, and 20 and 21 has suffered, that's a real easy one to say, hey, you know, this business is a good business and they're suffering like everybody else because of COVID. It's got good potential moving forward. So if you've got a good set of profit and loss statements, that's really important. A good chart of accounts. So how do you account for all those expenses? That's really important too, because the bank's going to look at that. Your buyer's going to look at that. And, you know, I've seen, I wish I had a picture of this, but I once got a profit and loss that was written on the back of an envelope. So use QuickBooks and make sure that you're using a good accountant. And you want to make sure that your tax returns match the P&Ls, because it's really important. It shows that there's no funny business going on there. So, you know, if the tax returns don't match the P&Ls, and it raises questions. We actually had a situation like this last year, but we were able to explain it away because the tax returns were a lot higher. They had multiple businesses that they had been selling off, and we were down to the last 3 of them. And so when we look at the tax returns and we looked at the P&Ls on those, they didn't match up. So we had to have their accountant come in and explain why that they didn't match, so that the bank would fund this thing. A good track record, no deficiencies is very important. You know, deficiencies happen. MARS, the medical records deficiency, is probably the most common that we see. But really, if you're planning on selling, you need to be on top of it, because that stuff, it will affect how a buyer looks at you. That's part of your reputation. And so, you know, therefore a good reputation is very important because we are trying to sell the goodwill. Good marketing, so nice brochures, nice website, those are all important. It's part of that goodwill. And again, the nice furniture and appliances, fresh furniture, modern appliances. It's just part of the package. So this is something I've seen that it just kind of blows me away, but I understand it. And I want to emphasize, if you're looking to sell, that this is something you got to watch out for. And that is taking fringe benefits that cannot be identified. And the biggest one I've seen is food expenses. I've met more than one operator that half the food that they go and buy for the facility ends up in the trunk, and they take it home and put it in their freezer and fridge. And I had one client who had 5 kids, and you know, that's a pretty big food bill for him, and he would write it off. So he would have his company pay for it, and he'd take it home, and that's how he fed his family. So when we went to identify it, it was really difficult to sort it out from everything that was there. So the net result of that was he spent about $20,000 a year in food expenses that he took personally. And hey, he, assuming 25% of income tax, he saved $5,000 in tax because he was able to kind of hide that through his expenses. So yay, right? Seems like a cool deal, say 5,000. But when you go to sell this thing, the average multiplier of seller discretionary earnings is about 2.5. So you take that $20,000 times 2.5, and he cost himself $50,000 in business value to save $5,000. So that's something that I really want to stress to people that are considering buying, is make sure if you're going to take any kind of fringe benefit, which we're all entrepreneurs, we want to minimize our taxes. That's completely understandable. As long as we can identify it, we can add it back in and justify it. Food, you can't identify. Your goal is to show as much profit as possible so your buyer can understand that that's what they're buying, is profit. Acceptable write-offs would be things like travel, meals, automobile expenses. These are things that are very common that a business owner was going to write off. I know that all my auto expenses go through my company, and I eat out a lot, and there's always a business reason for me to eat out. And most of my travel has got some kind of business purpose attached to it. So I take workations, as we may call it. My wife hates it, but it is a way to minimize some of those taxes. So those are the 3 biggest things that I've seen that have cost people money: that licensing, the due diligence, and not prepping for a sale. Do you guys have any questions? Comments?
Well, I have a question then. When you're talking about the business, the real estate in the business, but when you're talking about there's a 4 part, the comp, how you look at the comp in part of the selling the real estate, like comparison or what?
Yeah, we look at comparisons. I've got access to national data for just the businesses. I don't have access to national data for the real estate and business. I have access to that data in Colorado because I've been tracking those specific sales for the last 5 years. And every time I get an appraisal, sometimes there's 1 or 2 in there that I wasn't aware of. So I've been able to glean that information from appraisals and from deals that I've done and deals that my associates have done. So that's where I get my comps. But you know, nationwide, because real estate's so different, it's a little bit more difficult. We can certainly understand what the business value is, but then we have to look at, if we're just looking at the real estate, a lot of times we'll have to go and look at, well, what's the residential value of this real estate? And then what were the improvements that were done to this residence in order to make it an assisted living? So what we're trying to determine there is if somebody was going to come in and open one up down the block, what's it going to cost them? So they're going to have to buy the house. They're going to have to put in fire suppression, grab bars, maybe roll-in showers, maybe a ramp, maybe they're going to convert the garage to add extra bedrooms. So all those things that you've done to make your house an assisted living, we figure out, what was the expenses of that? What's it cost to buy that house? And if we combine those two, then that's the value of that house as an assisted living. So that's about the only way that we can really figure the real estate value. And then if we're trying to figure it out as a package, we'll take that and then add that to the business value. And we have a close number. It's not an accurate number because again, there's comps out there that can kind of vary that a little bit. So we have to look at the market and what are the cap rates and is it affordable?
And how you looking on the return of investment, like to combine with all that part and put together?
A lot of it depends on the size of the property, but what we typically see is if we're looking at the smalls, which are going to be 8 to 16 bed, cap rates are going to be anywhere from 10 to 14%. So the bigger it is, that lower the cap rate gets. If we start looking at bigger facilities like 50 to 100 bed, then that cap rate's going to drop down to probably 7-ish, 6 to 8, somewhere in that range. So a lot of it depends on the size, and we just have to look and see what the cap rates have been for comparable type of deals.
So you're talking about like the bigger side, it might be run less efficiently than the small side, or you look at that like the medium size?
No, the bigger ones, because they throw off more money, the cap rates are usually a little bit less. So they are valued at a higher rate in that scenario. Cap rates are kind of funny, the higher the cap rate, the lower the value, the lower the cap rate, the higher the value. So it's just kind of a backward way that works.
What, just out of curiosity, but I'm sure this may vary, but is it more cost effective to buy an already existing community versus just purchasing the real estate and then setting it up? I'm sure it would vary, but
yeah, it does vary. And a lot of that's going to vary by location, but in my opinion, I think it makes more sense to buy something that's up and running if you can find it. And the reason why is because, take an average one, say here in Colorado, it's probably going to be today probably $1.2 million for a 10 bed. And so you could go buy a 10 bed facility that's up and running for $1.2 million, or you could go buy a 3,000 square foot ranch that here in Colorado is probably $750,000 to $900,000, at least in the Denver metro area to start with. And then you could put $250,000 of expense into it to do the renovation, build out the garage, put in the fire suppression. So, maybe you're in it for about 1.1 mil at that point, and then you need to have about $100,000 to $200,000, depending on, really what your expenses are going to be of working capital. So let's just say 150 to be safe of working capital. So now you're in at 1.2 or 1.25, but the issue we have in Colorado is we've got to go through a lot in the licensing process. We start off with FGI review, which is about a 6-month process. And then once you get through that, then you can get your license, but that takes another 2 months. So you're at about 8 months there. And if you were willing to roll the dice and do your construction before your FGI review, even getting through permitting, that can take an extremely long time, especially in Denver. Which just for my wife's specialty construction company, I saw an email this morning about a permit that her client's been waiting 2 months for, and the city said that they're number 80 in the queue, and it takes at least 4 months before they'll review it. And that's pretty typical for what we see in just building in Denver. If we get outside of Denver, then it's not that bad, but you could still go through 2 or 3 months of permitting just to get, before you can start swinging the hammer. So when we look at all those factors, you would probably anticipate it would take a year before you were ready to open the door. And then after you open up the door, it's going to take at least 6 and probably 9 months before you're stabilized and breaking even. So you're in it for, 18 to 21 months for about the same price as if you went and bought one that's up and running and cash flowing today. So if you can
Right.
find one, I think that's a better move. It's not as customized as maybe you would have liked it to be. And you are taking on somebody else's baby. So, you got to kind of mold it to yours after a while. But it's a shorter path to cash flow.
Got it. Okay.
I have a question. If somebody purchased somebody else's facility in their name, are you able to change the name so you could start a new record, or does that mean changing all licensing and everything?
I think every state's going to be a little different. We were just researching Alaska, and in Alaska, you just have to start over.
In Colorado?
In Colorado, you can do a change of ownership. So you can retain their name. Some people like to maybe do a tag onto it, like we did one recently, and they kind of used their old name at the new name. So sometimes we see people do that. But you can use the old name and you can change that ownership. There's a plus and minus that happens when you do a change of ownership in Colorado. The plus side of doing that is, you retain that name. It's faster to get through. You can bypass FGI because FGI is required for a new license, but not for a change of ownership. So there's a really big plus to being able to just do a change of ownership. It's only $1,000 savings, but the big key is that FGI because it's 6 months to get through that. The drawback about doing a change of ownership is any baggage that license had in deficiencies goes with it. So if they had a bad deficiency in 6-8 months ago, a year ago, and there's a plan of correction that has to be in place, and you guys, they've got to follow this plan of correction, and the state's coming in to make sure everything's being done by the book, by that plan of correction, because they had those deficiencies. That follows that license. So now the new owner's got to deal with that baggage. So you really have to weigh it out and decide, what makes the most sense. If you're taking over something that's up and running, there's pretty much no other way to do it, to just keep it moving along, because otherwise you're going to jettison people out until you get your new license. So you're probably just going to have to deal with it. But if you could afford to pay the license twice and go through the process while you're using their old one, then maybe it makes sense, or you just deal with the baggage. So, you have to look at each circumstance and make that decision.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Peter, can you talk about marketing and maybe some pros and cons there, as far as if you buy a R.A.L that's already got great marketing in place, they've already got a filled facility, they've got a website, they've got great SEO. What are your thoughts on starting over if you've purchased an asset like that, or have the opportunity to purchase an asset like that? If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Peter might have stepped away.
Oh, shoot. We'll come back to him. Vern, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it certainly is important. And, if they've got an up and running website, that's valuable because there's some SEO that they've built. It takes time to get that SEO juice. And if they've had something up for, 10 years, boy, that's great. I'd keep that name, keep that URL and build off of that. Even if all you did was change, the site a little bit. You still want to have that kind of Google juice. If it's brand new, then it may not be as important, and maybe you could incorporate yours. But I think really the key that I see is, what are you presenting to the public? And a lot of that depends on the reputation. If you're taking over somebody's bad reputation, maybe a fresh look is important. But if somebody's had something good and it's working, I usually tell my clients, don't touch a thing for at least 6 months, because nobody likes change. And then after you've had it for 6 months, you can start making some tweaks. But your employees, if they don't have comfort, then the number one problem right now is staffing. And the last thing you want is them to start leaving. And there's always some attrition. Anytime there's a turnover in ownership, we see about a 30% turnover in staffing, just because, hey, we don't like the new guy. But as much as you can minimize that, you want to. So, I recommend just let it run for 6 months and resist as much as you can the urge to change anything, and then start making small changes. Well, any other questions?
Yeah, as far as keeping good staff, I mean, I know my mom is in an assisted living community, and it kind of just started up over the past maybe, well, since the beginning of the pandemic, and they have had a high turnover rate. What in your experience, how do you find and keep good staff?
Well, that's a very good question. It's come up a lot of times, and I think that the consensus that I've heard of people that are successful boils down to culture. And I would tend to agree with that, culture and how you treat your employees. In my other business, that we've had employees that have been with us for 15, 20 years, and we care about those people, and they're a little bit more skilled than what we deal with here in the minimum wage sector. So that's kind of challenging, because that minimum wage sector will sometimes leave for 25 cents. But if they truly feel like there's a good culture and the people care about them, then it's hard to get them to move for a quarter. They have to be a lot more motivated than 25 cents to move. And it's not always about money, in my opinion. It's about how people feel when they come to work, and do they feel appreciated? And,
Right.
This is a tough business, and, people kind of get abused a little bit by the seniors. So the last thing they need to be is abused by their bosses.
Yeah.
So I think it's culture is the main thing. Culture and appreciation.
Quick question on, if you have multiple facilities, how, or like, what's the a good structure? I'm wondering if there's, is there an executive director, or do you just have a manager running each house? What's an optimal structure there from like an operating standpoint? I kind of was thinking whether is that an equity partner as like your executive director, or is it someone that I can hire to perform that role?
A lot of it depends on how many people are in that particular house, but some of the better facilities that I've seen run, they will have a house manager, or at least somebody who has a little bit of leadership in each house, and an administrator for probably 4 houses that will, they're not too stretched, but they handle 4 houses. And then maybe you have an upper executive that manages 2 or 3 administrators. So, it's kind of a management tree in that scenario. You don't necessarily have to have a house manager. Just have to have somebody, if you got 4 houses that are fairly close to each other, one administrator should be able to handle all of those without having house managers. If they get further apart, then I think you kind of need to have a little bit more responsibility at that house. And, you know, is it a equity, executive director? That really depends on how you guys set it up. I think that person who's at the top really has to have a good handle on operations and to be able to make sure that the administrators know what they're doing. Maggie, did you want to chime in on that? I know Maggie has some assisted livings. I guess not. Okay. Does that help, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. You know, it's one of those things where you're talking about culture as a differentiating factor, right? And so how do we layer in those levels of leadership that will maintain that impression of, hey, I'm coming to look at your facility to place mom in, and oh, the owner's not here, but okay, I see this person who represents that brand and conveys that they are going to be there, that they're keeping a watchful eye, and you know, that there's a good culture there. So, you know, it's definitely helpful for you to kind of build this framework.
That takes a lot of training when you're talking about doing the tours, and it can certainly be done. Most people are going to have their administrator do the tour because of the level of training in that. Chuck Bongiovanni of Majestic has been putting on a really neat training session on tours, and he's the former founder of Care Patrol. So this guy's done a lot of tours in his day, and he knows what works. We're certainly going to try to get him in here sometime this year to maybe give that presentation to our group. But if you can find him on Facebook, and occasionally he puts this out where he'll do a 1 hour or 2 hour training on giving tours, and I'd highly suggest you take it.
What was that man's name? The tours man?
Chuck Bongiovanni, and he is he formerly founded Care Patrol, and he sold that, and then he started Majestic Assisted Living, which is a franchise. And he presented to us last year. I think we should have a recording on the website of his presentation. But it wasn't just tours, it was talking about, you know, what they're doing, which is some really interesting stuff too. If you have a chance, go look at that. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Do you guys think that these mistakes I showed you would prevent you from doing something like this? Or I'm just kind of curious if this was any value to you.
This is Maggie.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I live in law.
I think the most important thing for us was to get a competent and experienced attorney to handle all of our legal documents through the process. And it really covered all the bases, and we felt very comfortable, not only for the purchase of it, but also for the licensing process, and then for the MCO contracts, which is the Medicaid contracts. I can't say enough about our attorney firm that we have and our specific attorney. He has been invaluable to get us through the entire thing, from the initial purchase and licenses and now contracts.
That's great. You're lucky to find them all in one group too, which is unusual.
Even if you think they're expensive, all it takes is 1 or 2 ideas. And like that guy who lost $200,000 because he didn't do something right, that's what an attorney can can save you. So don't look at his hourly rate. Look at the value that he brings to the table.
I agree. And here's my piece of advice if you're looking for an attorney. I've learned through the years that if I need an attorney for something, I don't call them up and say, do you do this specific thing? I'll call them up and say, what do you do? And if they say what you're looking for, then that's the guy to use, because all attorneys will tell you they can do anything that you want. So if you're looking for a real estate attorney, don't just call an attorney and say, do you do real estate? A divorce attorney will tell you, yeah, I do real estate. Or a business attorney. Those are hard to find, a really good business attorney. So let them tell you, I specialize in business law, and that's your guy for your business. We know that we've got a good attorney for assisted living with the Pinkowskis. So, they're a great resource for you. Maybe Rick would want to share his attorney as well in the chat box, because it sounds like he's had some pretty good success. So that's just some of my advice for attorneys.
I am doing that right now. Hold on.
Wonderful.
His name is, well, I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I don't know if that's going to help people if you're all out in Colorado. Tristan Dollinger is his name, and I'll just, because I can get it quickly, I'll just get his phone number. Like most attorney law firms, he belongs to a long name that takes 2 business cards to get the entire firm name. And good news is he does return calls and everything else, and he works late at night. So if you're one of those late night people, you'll be able to get him, or he'll respond to you late at night. It's always an interesting thing that I get emails from him after midnight, and he's always surprised that I respond back to him. So that's his name, Tristan Dollinger, and that's his phone number. And yeah, just mention my name.
What state did you say you're in, Rick?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Maggie. Maggie, did you want to say something?
No, you asked if this was a helpful session, and I do have an assisted living, and I am always thinking about, should I sell or should I keep it? And this has really given me a little bit more to think about and prepare. I like the prepare part, because I think there's a lot of preparing that I need to do before I even consider it. So I really do appreciate it.
Good.
I just want to make one comment. We bought our existing facility and it was broken up into 3 different companies. From day one, I have prepared the books and cleaned up the chart of accounts and everything else, so that when the time comes to sell, I can rattle off those P&L statements just like that, unlike what I had to do to buy the place because it was a mess. So get your books in order, allocate your expenses according to either each location or to the legal structure, so that you don't intermingle those expenses, and then you can't, if you want to just sell one building, you can't do it because the expenses and the profits are, and income is all over the place. You want to be able to, if you want to, at the time in the future, if you want to just sell one facility, you're able to run that report or couple reports to get those financials, so that you can show the potential buyer, this is the specific P&L for this facility, this one location, 2 locations, 3 locations.
Are you for hire, Rick?
No, but I am available for a good meal.
There you go.
All right, me too.
I would
I'm
second what
curious.
Rick-
I'm curious, Maggie, Rick, anyone who owns a R.A.L who it has considered in the past or maybe considering now, either selling or expanding. What do you think of the idea of potentially bringing on someone who wants to have a R.A.L someday, but maybe they don't have the financial ability to do that by themselves? And perhaps they come in, you arrange some sort of equity split, they're running it under your tutelage, and then you can grow, sell, whatever the case may be. Does that sound like something you guys would entertain?
I would definitely entertain it. I actually have a long time employee there. She preceded me because we purchased the assisted living, who I would consider doing that with. And I think it helps both of us out when you do something like that, unless you really want to get out of it immediately. But I would definitely entertain that.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie.
I'm sorry, Renee, I'm not quite clear which aspect of the question you're asking, because it almost appeared like there were a couple issues that you were addressing.
Yeah. So, what we deal with a lot is folks who they're passionate about this for whatever reason. They want to purchase a R.A.L, and maybe they have no experience directly. Like I've got a woman right now, she's an RN and she's been working in an assisted living facility, but she's not quite in the position to come up with the down payment. And, obviously, depending on her income, she may not be able to be a guarantor. Let's say she was doing the lease option with us. So, we're just trying to think of some creative ways that we can partner the folks who are already there and are ready to move on or expand or retire altogether.
Sure.
It's kind of a win-win.
So
Yeah, Renee,
she needs to find either a professional doctor, attorney, business owner, somebody who's got more money than time to help to have as a partner. And the first go around, she may be a very minor partner to get her foot in the door, but at least she'll be able to, take her position and her experience to the next level of ownership. So she's lacking capital. There's a lot of people out there who do have capital, but not the time or the inclination. And so she needs to find those people and do a partnership with them. Absolutely.
I bet there's a couple of those guys in this room.
Thank you.
I would agree. I would
I'm
agree.
definitely looking for that. I'm looking for that as well.
And
those are the types of individuals that would be helpful, Renee. If you're able to connect or we connect offline, I'd love to talk about who you have in mind. So I think they serve a great purpose in terms of like a partnership, right? I mean, these are people who are in the industry, have that hands-on experience, maybe being able to partner up with people that have access to capital or have business experience and can bring that. It could be a fruitful partnership potentially.
For sure. I'm going to post my calendar invite in here. If you would like to discuss that or something else related to this topic, feel free to schedule some time there.
And Vern, you're just going to get a hold of me at your earliest convenience, me and Paul, or do you want us to schedule to give you an update?
Well, you could, you pick the time. We've got a closing on, I've got 3 closings coming up here in the next week or so, but that's the only thing that I'm committed to.
Okay. I wanted to wait until we actually had the signed contract.
Okay.
So that it's all said and done. And then I was going to get back to you just to give you an update.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I have a question real quick. And this is kind of just piggybacking off what was just said. What is your guys' advice, Bern? What is your guys' advice for, I'm the type of person that she was just speaking of. I have my operator license. I've been in assisted living care. I've done it from the bottom. I don't have the capital. What do you guys, is there like a site or somewhere I go where to find people who are looking for operators, are looking for people with, you know, to admin and to work with people? Is how can I find people who are looking for this position?
I would say you're in the right room to do that type of thing. Our web or our Facebook page would also help serve that function. Usually it's networking and getting to know people. Yes, we don't have a specific site for that that I know of yet, but we're probably the closest thing, because part of what we're trying to do in networking is put people together and help them succeed. So yeah, if you want to put your name in the chat as being interested in that too, we'll have Renee see how we can pair you up with some people that might work out.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's working, Bern. You know, that's what I'm that's what I'm here for. One, to learn, certainly, but two, also to find you know, potentially find good operators who are either looking to scale. You know, I kind of see or I hear a lot of the struggle from those who are owning and operating just one facility, right? And having a hard time being able to scale up or get to that level of, you know, efficiency, right? And profitability to kind of work on their business instead of in their business. And so that's kind of, you know, what we're trying to partner with, those types of individuals who are looking to grow.
Terrific.
In talking about scalability, one of the things, I'm not an operator. I have zero. Before we bought our business, we had no experience in assisted living. What we did do is we bought big enough so that it could afford the people who did have the experience and the knowledge to run the business. And I knew, well, I'm not going to say that right off the bat, but I didn't think I was going to start off with an 8-bed, 16-bed, because my concern was I didn't want to be the one who had to take third shift when that caregiver didn't show up. And that's why we started off bigger, so that we would have the management staff and the people staff to cover those people who didn't show up. So my point is don't be afraid about going bigger, because in my opinion, it actually gets easier. And when you go bigger, because you have more scale, more resources available to you, and you can hire those people who know more than you.
To be more specific, we had 3 LPNs that were working in that deal. One of them was actually an acquaintance of mine that I had known before we even bought these. And we were able to take them from LPNs to administrators. And the owner helped us do that. And they're running our facilities, our communities for us now. That was a big major thing for us.
Yeah. And I'm the one who does the books and everything else. And I do them all from my desk right here. And I very rarely go to the facilities. Very, very rarely.
Good stuff, guys. You know, I always say investing is a team sport. And we always make more money when we work together.
Yes, absolutely.
Vern, we have a couple of announcements before you wrap up. I'm going to
Okay.
hijack it from you. I just came up with this idea. How How would you guys feel about doing a little speed dating, speed networking with, if I could match R.A.L owners ready to expand or sell with people who would like to become operators to get conversation going? What do you guys think of that?
Oh, good idea.
All right, I'll put that together. And then the
I
other
like it.
thing, who was that?
I said, I like you.
Awesome. I got you, girl. So the other big thing is we're going to be hosting a 5-week masterclass on how to buy and sell R.A.Ls. Each week, we're going to do both classes. So at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, it'll be how to buy. And then at, I think we're going to do 10:30 or 11. We have to dial that in. But the next one will be right after, and it'll be how to sell. And each week, we're going to dive into a very specific topic. And, the whole goal is to have you guys leave better than where you were. So whether that means you want to be on the buyer side, or you already have one, you're ready to buy another one, or you want to sell yours, wherever you fit in there, feel free to join both of those. And we're going to have some exclusive offers for that, that workshop. We'll announce those here soon, but just wanted to give you a heads up. I think we're doing that in May, right, Vern?
Yeah, Renee's whipping that, cracking that whip, and
My sound effect button.
it's making me work.
Vern, I'd just like to say something, and if I'm overstepping my boundary, you can slap me after this meeting, but when I went to Gene's first workshop back in December of 2020, I went to the meeting before the actual workshop. They had, with a meet and greet. And one of the people there who really was very instrumental in my development was Carla. And she was just so open about what she did, how she did it, and how she grew her business to, it was either 9 or 10 locations and 100 beds. And if it wasn't for her specifically, I really wouldn't be here. And so I want to carry it forward. If anybody just wants to have a few minutes of my time, if they're dealing with something, I'm not the expert. I've only been in this for a year and 3 months, but I put my email and my phone number down there. Just don't call me before 9 o'clock in the morning because I'm still not really going, but we can talk later on. And I would like to, in honor of Carla, just carry it forward because she and other people helped me along the way.
Terrific.
Katie, I think he's talking to you.
Who?
Katie Cox, are you still on? I think we were in a breakout room and this is exactly what I was telling her.
Oh, no, I don't see her, Paul.
Her name's still up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Vern, can you walk us through how to save the chat so we have everybody's information?
Well, yeah, I just click on the chat, okay, and you see where you can type your message. There's a smiley face right over there on the right-hand side and 3 dots, ... Okay. Click on the ... and it says save chat. Okay. Now, here's the tricky part. It creates a text file, a TXT file, and trying to find that is a little tricky because Apple saves it in a different location, I believe, than where it's saved on a PC. And if you don't know your way around a computer, it may be difficult. Now, I am going to just say a few words. So if this sounds familiar to you, it will be directed to you. If you know how to use your Windows Explorer on a PC, go to your documents folder and go to your documents folder and it's Zoom. Ah, there it is. It's Zoom. And then it's saved in a folder with today's date, and it says 3 costly mistakes. And if you want to give me control of the screen, guys, I can show you how to do it. Renee?
Yeah, also, if you click that save chat, there's a button there, at least on PCs, that says show in folder.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see where it's at. So like I can see that mine was saved in Zoom and there's the whole path.
You are so correct. Save chat and then, well, okay, wait a second. I know what you said. I saw that before too, but now it's not showing up.
It goes away pretty quick if you don't do it right away.
Yeah. It said,
I did just download it, so I'm happy to email it to everybody if you'd like.
yeah.
So I just shared my screen. See, I click this, hit save chat, and then show in folder. Right there. And it brings it up.
Awesome.
Pretty
Vern?
easy. All right, so let me stop the share here. Oh, I didn't share, did I?
I didn't see it.
Sorry.
There you go.
All right.
There you
save
go.
chat, show folder, and it shows it over here. So there it is. Save chat and show in folder. All right, the last thing that we do in our meeting is haves and wants. And this is an opportunity, if you are a vendor and want to just tell the group what you do, this is an opportunity to do that. If you, which we've kind of already done, if you're looking to partner up with somebody, this is an opportunity to say, hey, I'm looking for a partner. It's just an open forum, which, we've kind of had an open forum here, but this is where I give anybody that has a service they want to present to the group the opportunity to do that. So do we have anybody that wants to present any service to the group? All right, I didn't think so. Now we also leave this page open for open networking. And I've got to head out. So what I would do is I just leave it open until everybody's gone. So feel free to network amongst yourself. It's like when we're at the restaurant, we were getting kicked out at 9 o'clock, but you got some time and we won't kick you out at 9 o'clock. So if you want to do some more networking and talk about maybe partnering or whatever it is you want to do, that's what we do. And I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's presentation and getting together and networking. I really enjoyed the conversation that we had, and it's great to see a lot of familiar faces. And thanks everybody for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again next month. Cherie and Katie, I'd love to get your feedback on the meeting.
I loved it.
Awesome.
Just good information. I feel like as a woman, this work is kind of like what we do naturally. So I don't understand how people mess up so bad. It's like cross your T's, dot your I's, and so I love it. I love all this. And I just love giving the information. If you could go back in time, what would you do different? So learn so you don't have to make the same mistakes, So I love this part of learning and getting it all together. And I'm just hoping I could find, I know I can't own right now, and I'm okay with that. I just want to get in a position where I could learn, be an operator somewhere, run, help run something. And so I'm just hoping through all these processes, I could find somebody who's willing to let me have this opportunity. But outside of that, this is great stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you send me your resume?
Okay.
And just put something together, what you bring, and it wouldn't necessarily be like a job resume as much as, your leadership ability, what you're bringing to the table as far as helping the business grow, and, all
Like a
those.
cover letter?
Yeah, something like that. Just something that gives your experience and what you're bringing to the table. And then as I'm talking to folks, I'm happy to make that introduction. I've got quite a few meetings scheduled over the next 6 to 8 business days. And I'm happy to share that information with them, and anybody who's in a position that they're looking to bring somebody on, and like I said, expand or sell or whatever the case may be, then, let's make those connections for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll do that. I'll get that going tomorrow and I'll send it to you. And outside of that, this was a great meeting. So I'll be on these, just learning as much as I can. I was, like I said, I was coming to the in-person one years ago, but then I kind of I wasn't ready. But now I'm like back and I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? What I need to do? What do I need to do?
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited that you made it back to us, and I look forward to helping you on this journey.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everybody on this call, you and Vern especially. And I'm glad I get to meet you. When you was like, Sheree, I was like, oh, I think I talked to her.
Yep. I was so excited to see you hop on. So it was great.
All right, I'll talk to you soon and I'll be emailing you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sheree.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.